Thank you, Heavenly Father. Well, it occurs to me in listening to this recording, got up to about, 18 or 20 minutes through, that the real necessity is tied up in what becoming a mature person in heaven is. And it is something to do with the completeness of such a being, that they, let me overstate it for a minute, that they are self-made. They must have experienced becoming God themselves, not simply being given. Because if I was given, I would not receive, except I were already of the experience of being what you're giving me. It's a bit like the problem, the only person that really knows God properly is God, because you need his abilities to understand, to grasp it. You'd need to be at least as competent, if you like, as God. Need to be at least as full as what God is, of all whatever God is, qualities-wise, and so forth. Being God is not something he was given. He achieved it. And to be, therefore, an equal with God, you would have to achieve it, not be given it. So I think I'm imagining God to get it both ways. He sets up a situation where he has children, but the children must ultimately do the final achieving themselves. It can't be given. He can only set up the possibility of what he wants. Abide with this for a moment, run with me for a minute, that if God wanted equals in his family, that we're all equal, that in some sense I am to be respected for values and ability and so on as you, and accomplishments, and you are as me, then you can't have received your position by privilege because I helped. Because that would be, therefore, you're in some sense not equal to me, but in some sense in my debt, always having to defer to me in some ultimate sense. If God's conception of a perfect family is not ultimately that they can defer to him, but that ultimately that which is right is done, even though he is the epitome of what is right, and that might be the saving clause, that he is. He would want to risk not having the epitome of being right, but some greater counsel. You know, the boys have decided, contrary to what I think, and so we're going to run with that. Why? Because the boys are adults now, like me, and the young men must have their way. That's part of what being a man is. Grown up, you see. know I'm not explaining this at all well. I mean, it's very new to me. What I'm not sure in this scenario is that, as God, my view of what the ideal family is? Or is my view of the ideal family far more traditional, that they do all defer to me because I am the noble great parent anyway? And that's my ideal. I've been brought up with a mum who wanted me to call her friend, not mum. Francis, not mother. I'm your closest, dearest friend, you see. I suppose she had a concept that being a friend was greater than being a parent. And perhaps that's where she was wrong. And I'm wrong at the minute. That no, the Jesus message is being a parent is greater than being a friend. Yes, a parent is a good friend to you, but more importantly, but being a parent is that and more. Not just that. And that it is that concept that enables us to have a creation, goodness, that's feasible. The other one's not feasible. Because I can't love you and risk you having to work out the highway code on your own. I've got to be holding your hand, helping you across the road, showing you how to handle the traffic, so that you enter into a competence. I know in my heart I didn't really want to call her Francis. I wanted to call her Mum. And I knew that she wanted me to see her as my best friend, and she was. But from my point of view, of course, she's my mum. And that is all of what she wants and more. She's also my mum. And it's that dependence upon her that I wanted. Wanted because, well, you just are aware of your incompetence. She's competent and you're not. And you want to defer to the one that's so competent, given they love you. Of course, if they don't love you, you're frightened to death of them and you want to escape in case, what's in their interest is not in yours, and you're going to be in trouble because they're far more competent. The fact that God is awesome doesn't mean to say I want to worship him. Well, certainly don't want to be devoted to him. I may want to run a mile if I think, yes, he is awesome, isn't he? And he hasn't got my values. Grief. I'm just chaff. I don't count with him. Do you see? We want God to be awesome, but loving. Or loving and hopefully awesome as well. That would be nice. But loving is the essential. That's the cardinal thing, isn't it? Let me pause. Right, so more crisply then, if it's the case that you must be self-made, then you can imagine the situation where God sets up a universe of uncertainty and dumps you in it. And hopes to goodness you'll come out okay. Or you've even chosen to come into it, because that's what you require. You're the prodigal who says, give me. my share. I want to use it my way. And off he goes and does. He comes back in the end and he's lost the wealth that he was given, of course, but he comes back in harmony with the household. The other brother was in harmony and remains in harmony. He's a bit peeved that the other brothers come back. So he hasn't quite achieved the wonderful nature that we would hope for yet. But all that I have is yours, says Dad to him, which suggests, look, you're still the privileged one, aren't you? It's not that the guy who's come back has more than you. He hasn't got anything compared to you. In fact, in some sense, he's subject to you because he's reliant on you and me while I'm alive. We're talking about a family here in the world. He's reliant on the wealth that you, all goes to you anyway. It's only our charity and kindness that's having him back, of course. But it's in our interest too, because he's our brother. We love him, and he's now in harmony with us. Sorry, he's my son, your brother. And he's now in harmony with us, and it'd be terrible not to let him back. So don't be peeved. You shouldn't be anyway. I mean, forgiveness is wanting the other person to be as blessed as if they hadn't made the mistake, hadn't done the wrong, if you like. And our love for them is such that, well, we want them to be as blessed as we are. And that may mean us going down a level, but given they're now going to be in harmony with us, assuming they are, with certainty, okay, but yeah, then that would be the ideal, I think. I think that the ideal values we're assuming. So we're a bit worried about the the son that didn't go away, because it doesn't look as though he's going to want to share his half at all with the brother that's wasted his own half and is now reliant on the home brother. But coming back to what is the situation? The prodigal thing suggests something much closer to the God allows or even dumps you in a world where, but the prodigal son, of course, he pressed to leave Dad. Dad wanted him to stay. The garden is a different one. It's where God throws Adam and Eve out. Well, the Christian church sees it as that anyway, because that's the way it's written. So so we can say that's that story, and I would say that story, of course, isn't necessarily right, but certainly the Christian church wants to believe it's totally right. You see, the saving enlightenment is to realize that God in his realm is never at risk. He is always able to find a certain and sure way of doing something. And in this case, we can envisage a situation where the certain and sure way is you're experiencing an uncertainty as to whether I exist or not, whether I'm there or not. But I am in the certainty that I am, and that you are going to come through. So you are cooperative in the plan in that you think you're making decisions on your own, and therefore are much more accepting of choosing the right way, whereas in fact I am still with you, though you are outside the garden, or in this case with the prodigal gone into a far country. Even though you don't realize I'm there, still calling the shots. What's happening to you? And we do end up with a situation where indeed I am your superior in some sense, but it's a situation that you are most happy to embrace, and I too, because I know how you are so transformed in character that this is in no way a burden but a blessing to you. And of course I, being perfect if you like, in no sense would take advantage of you in my superior situation of your deferring to me ultimately as a parent rather than simply as a friend. In other words, the friendship is more than the parentship is more than a friendship situation. And that is what God is choosing for us because it's best, and He goes about it accordingly. He does allow us to experience freedom, but it's a show, really the parent is watching the child and makes sure the child comes through safely. So we can imagine a situation where the child thinks it is at risk and would be but for me being there. I make sure there's a miraculous saving when you make a mistake, but you don't realize for sure that it's because of my presence, because you're not sure if my presence is there or not. Perhaps it was a coincidence that they came out of it, and so forth. It might be a long and torturous way of journey to get there, but you will get there. Sorry, that's the wrong explanation, saying long and torturous journey. It may still be a long journey, but it will get you there for sure. And the journey, as I've said elsewhere, is but a moment in time compared to eternity. So it's best we do that. So from my point of view, I will always be, in the world of uncertainty, uncertain of the presence of God, even if I've had most amazing miracles and experiences, and even if I've, talked with Jesus back home or something, which is some people certainly claim has happened to them and their lives have turned around at the time. But the vividness of that presence is still doubted and questioned in the ongoing complexity of life. So there is always some doubt as to, after all, is God still with me? Things like that, have I offended Him in some way? And perhaps He would turn away in certain unforgivable sin situations and so forth, And that is all necessary. In other words, it may be crucial for our coming to fullness of the relationship that God has in mind for us, namely that He's our loving Father and we're His loved children. And for us to love Him, and for that to come about, it may be very necessary for us to be in doubt. And to be in doubt, that may be ensured by the horrendously evil that we can't explain. It must be necessary that there's something we can't explain, else we will not be in uncertainty. And He knows that the uncertainty is essential. Okay, thank you, Heavenly Father. Right, let me give you a sort of parallel example. My boy, I buy him a car Volvo, and he wrecks it. He phones me up and says, "Oh, Dad, I've wrecked the car. You all right?" "Yes." "Oh, good. Well, don't worry about the car, boy. I've got another one in the garage." You know, for a minute he's suffered, he's lost his car, the car that Dad bought him. Oh my goodness, you know, it's all terrible. Fine, you've experienced that. Another one in the garage. And the lesson is enough. You'll take a bit more care, not turn the next one over. Do you see we've allowed the uncertainty, the loss we've experienced, but in fact temporarily. There's another one in the car and actually it's better. In the garage, it's better. Nice silver one. And it's a joy to give it to you. And of course he thinks his dad's wonderful. But he'd come to his rescue. And Dad's just so pleased to be able to come to his son's rescue. Yeah? Something of that, isn't it? Thank you, Heaven.